You learn more, you earn more. It is time for another episode of Ask Pat, where Downing-Frye Realty's Director of Corporate Training helps you become more productive, professional, and profitable in your real estate career. Please welcome Pat Pitocchi and Cindy Woolley.
It's Pat. Ask Pat.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Good to see you. There's nothing like a good introduction to warm you up, eh?
There you go. And you know what?
What?
We are extremely lucky today to have with us Brett Brown. Brett is here in the flesh in front of our wonderful turtles that we're so famous for in Florida. But Brett is just kind of a Renaissance person. Brett really he's a Hall of Famer at NAR and keeps us really in touch with everything that's going on so we know we're current. So we're constantly bothering him and asking him different questions, making sure of everything that, we're doing and so on and so forth. But he's very, very generous type of person. Mm-hmm. He's also with Downing-Frye, but don't tell anyone. We
like to keep our secrets.
We're going to keep hold of him. We just put him in jail here. But anyway, Brett's going to talk with us a little bit about a couple of really important matters. One is he's just gotten back and barely got to any sleep, having gone to Tallahassee. And he is our one of our top numbered ambassadors to Tallahassee for the Great American Realtor Days, and can really fill us in on maybe the top 3 to 5 ideas that you came back warning us about. And he comes in and tells us, get moving. So what should we get moving on?
Well, I think the biggest thing that was a takeaway this year was we had more people attend Great American Realtor Days, realtors, than we have ever had in the past. There were over 1,009 people that attended, realtors from across the state. As a general rule, we probably had 500 or 600. How impactful is that? That's the real question. Why would you go there? What's the point? It's an opportunity to sit down with your legislators and express the interests and the importance of private property rights. And that's what we get to go do and sit at the table. RPAC helps us do that through, our RPAC investments. It allows us a seat at that table. And I always love the ones they always say you're either on the menu or you're at the table, So it's very, very important to attend if you have the opportunity. Neighbor takes a group up there every year. It's been very valuable for finding out what's going on. This year, probably it was a historic piece of legislation that put almost, if you coupled all the components of the bills, it put $1 billion for affordable housing.
And that's wonderful.
Yes, and it's something Florida Realtors is extremely proud of. And it was like, okay, drop the mic, we're done. That was something we've been trying to accomplish for quite some time. I think it's going to make a lot of headway against affordable housing and helping people get into homes.
So that's very important here in Collier County, because we definitely have very little in terms of affordable housing for folks.
Workforce housing, what's going to happen if we continue down the road we're going? The people who are serving you in the restaurants, the people who are your sheriff, police, fire, all of our necessary components to survive down here, and the reason we're here and get to enjoy the area, we're not going to have any of that labor if we keep going down the path we're going.
Right. So that's really important. And you know what? All realtors need to hawk this and really make people very aware. Realtors have been working on this, I'm going to say 10 years or so, with the Sadowski funds and everything. I mean, we've been working on this forever. Yeah.
I have been going to Great American Realtor Days for probably the past 25 years, missed maybe 1 or 2. And I can tell you that was almost always the hot topic every year we went. It's something that we continually try to address, but nobody's come up with some answers. This bill that they just passed is a very good stride towards doing something for affordable housing.
So affordable housing and a really good turnout really highlights. Is there anything else that they were working on there that you're dying to tell us about?
That was probably the best thing,
Okay.
other than the opportunity that we got to meet with all of our legislators, up in Tallahassee. We Representative Mello, Representative Rommel, and Senator Pasadomo, Bob Rommel. We were able to meet with every one of them and kind of get some feel of what's going on. And we always offer, what can we do to help you? That's how we leave every meeting. And
Right.
we have a great relationship with all of our representatives and our senator. And I think that is what really helps. Matter of fact, the governor was here in Naples or Fort Myers. They told us Naples, but I'm not sure exactly where, to sign that bill for the Affordable Housing Act. On the day we were there, generally we get to hear from the governor, but he didn't come up there because he was here. So it was rather exciting.
Yeah. The Collier County delegation, the representatives in the area are really phenomenal, and they really work together to advance our corner of the state. So it's nice to hear them making progress on this issue.
I think it's really important, and I want people to understand this is not a party view. This is a nonpartisan view. We at NABOR and Downing-Frye, whatever your political beliefs are your political beliefs. However, affordable housing is the kind of topic that really cuts across all.
Yeah, sure.
all views, etc. And how can you be against that?
Absolutely.
Essentially, I taught in a small community, and the students used to say to me, "I won't be able to live here. I won't be able to afford to live here." Your community really does change when folks are not allowed to have those kinds of deep roots. So I am thrilled with that. We've also made a lot of progress working on water quality, etc. And Naples has contributed, I think, quite a bit to all those discussions. So that's really good, and that cuts across whatever particular view you have politically. Has nothing to do with this. It has to do with lifestyle, I would say.
Our PAC always tries to call themselves the Purple Party.
Yep.
We're not red, we're not blue. We're the Purple Party. We're there for personal property rights. That's our sole goal, is to protect personal property rights. And every single one of our legislators in our area has an open door to any realtor. And the reason is because we help them, and they obviously then listen and help us.
And purple is my favorite color. So purple is really what we want to push. And we want to try also in the same sort of thing without a political overtone to it. Love to talk with Brett, because Brett has done a lot of research and done some training, and is one of the teachers of the bias program that NAR is trying to get rolling. And NAR is doing that to meet needs. I mean, we've had some unfortunate circumstances. We've had some things that kind of surprised you and me. And I mean, really sort of surprised us that we're in this century and these things are happening. But I think that that's really going to be a very important topic. So can you explain a little bit about what is bias? Do I have bias, for example?
Everybody does. Implicit bias is something that we develop as early as 3 years old. Your parents are teaching you certain things, that you're building models in your mind. And the best way to explain it is, let's say you got up this morning, you took a shower. You don't remember putting the soap on the bar or on the loofah or whatever. You wash yourself. You were doing things just kind of automatically without having to think of them. That's your unconscious mind knowing this is my routine. Well, we do the same thing and judging people when we first meet them. That first minute, you've made decisions in your mind without even knowing it, that this person needs to be in this neighborhood, or this and that's what implicit bias is. And the first thing is trying to be aware that you have them and find out what yours specifically are.
So I think that's really the sort of uncomfortable part for folks, is we've got to look in the mirror, and we've got to be open enough to say, based on my own experiences, I'm kind of biased. I was raised by someone who was like Archie Bunker. So, and I don't mention that when I'm teaching anymore because no one knows who Archie Bunker was at that
I know.
time. But I think, as things have changed, it's important. And I just wanted Brett to share a little bit with us about the fact that NAR has started a big push on this because we really do need this. And we've had some instances. And you want to talk a little bit about NAR got involved because it's a need, not just because they don't have anything to do and let's do this. But why is that so important today?
Well, the biggest problem you have is that when you have these implicit biases, you're doing things that you might not be aware of that are basically very offensive to people. A good example is the testing that they did in New York and what they're in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
What they did was they sent testers in, and they would send a couple of color and a couple that was Caucasian, and they would have the exact same financial documentation, the exact same desire for what they were looking for. And they went through, and the results of it were off the charts. And it was to the extent that people who were of color were asked about, where's your financing? I want to see a pre-approval letter before I take you out and show you property. And that happened in like 40% of the cases. And it was fine because the people didn't know how the people of color did not know how the people who were Caucasian were being treated, but they were never asked. Let's get in the car. Let's go look at property. And it was like case after case after case of this going through. And there's still civil suits on this now. And that's why we've got to be concerned. And it all comes from, I see someone of color. Oh, well, they obviously can't afford a house, or they can't, because the way they were raised. Maybe they grew up in a neighborhood where, the people of color in that neighborhood, couldn't afford a home. They were renting, or they were in quote unquote projects at the time. And that's what they grew up with. And they just assumed every person of color is in that category, not trying to find out, what their, their job was, or what their career style was, or what their income or anything else was, or the other things, or to find out about them, which is what we really should all be doing. And that's the problem. That's the problem that comes into play.
I think that in today's world, and we're in a litigious society, and we have to first figure out whether we are comfortable in certain situations, and whether, as Brett said, any of our past experiences have led us to make these stereotypical beliefs. And if so, we always train people to have one system for all customers. And that's a wonderful way to do that, particularly if it's in writing and you follow that. You have to do it also after that. But I think one of the things that makes bias such an uncomfortable topic for people is we are not saying that you're bad. No one is saying that you're a bad person or whatever. All we're saying is, let's take a look at what we do and what we don't do, and make sure that we don't base that on some implicit bias that we have. But I think there are times when people, will call me and say, well, that you said I was bad. Well, no, not really. And I think that's the uncomfortable part. Do you agree?
That's a lot of it. What ended up happening in the results was they ended up bringing the people back in, both the parties that were shot by ex-agent. They'd bring the agent in and discuss what happened. They would bring then both the prospects, or the whatever you want to call them, the pretenders that were playing the parts as the buyers, and they told them what happened to the other buyer. And that's when things hit the wall. That's when we started to see lawsuits, because they said, well, that's not right. And I'm disgusted by that treatment.
Two systems.
Why, exactly. Why did you treat that person better or different than me? Why didn't you show me those properties that they had? Because I would have bought this property. And we have a problem where often we try to steer people into a neighborhood. Just remember, if there's one thing that I teach in almost every class I do, you're not buying the house. Your customer is buying the house. Let them dictate the rules and where they want to go. Don't try to guide them anywhere. You obviously can offer suggestions of, hey, they're a golfer. Here's what a bundled golf course is. Here's what an equity golf course is. But let's not say, oh, you need to be on a public golf course, and make those decisions for them. Let them make the decisions. Our job is to be the source of the source, provide the information, let the customer make the decisions.
Pat, just jumping in, I think one of the things that might open people's minds is this isn't just an issue of race. It's not just a black and white issue. My daughter is studying ASL, and part of learning sign language is learning the culture and learning, a little bit about that experience.
I think we've lost the audio, Cindy.
Uh-oh, am I back? Okay, I apologize for that. I had a visitor join me, so.
They have a tendency to put their paw on the mute button.
It happens.
That adds the reality that we all love. Who can control cats and dogs?
Oh, Lordy. So my daughter was talking about how, and I don't know whether she learned this or whether it was an actual professor, but there was a couple, they were both deaf, and they decided to get cochlear implants. They didn't work the same in the different people. And it was almost like in deaf culture that they were being made to feel that they were wrong, that they were less than, because they couldn't hear, because they use sign language. And, so as we're dealing with people of different abilities, we have to just be able to recognize there are different abilities and different preferences, and it's not all skin tone. It's everything. We've all got biases.
And there is bias within a group. As you said, those people who can maybe are hearing impaired but can hear more than this other group who hear less. The same with a color, race, creed, or anything else. And in our country right now, with everything going on, I personally think that this is really very valuable.
It applies to every one of the protected classes.
Yep.
And that's where we've got to be very, very cautious. And 90% of the time, it's out of fear on the part of the person who's providing the implicit bias. And it's only because they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that you need to do to try to correct is education and awareness. That's one of the 4 steps that you need to take to be able to get those biases settled down or calm down enough to be able to deal with the situation.
Well, Brett's going to spend some time at our boot camp in April 19th, in trying to help us figure out how we can be ambassadors of this whole notion, and how we can first look in the mirror at ourselves and be honest enough to say, I guess I have this bias from when I was a kid.
You just hit the number 2 reason we need to do this, and that's accountability.
Yeah.
You need to be accountable for the implicit biases that you have. And once you're aware of them, it's really easy to kind of work around them. There's a test called a Stroop test where they show the colors in, like, red would be spelled out red and it'll be written in red. Blue will be spelled out blue, written in blue. And they pop these up and you go through them and they want you, okay, I want you to read the word. And you read the word red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And then the next phase of it is, I want you to tell me the color of the text. And they'll put blue in red. They'll put red in black. And people will go through and they'll say what it says, because as an older person, you're going to, once you've gotten out of school, your education is, I read quicker than I recognize colors. And then they go back and change it around. Read the word, not the color. And you'll read black, but it'll be written in blue. And people will go blue. And it's black. But it's because first thing we learned when we went through school was blue. These are implicit biases. These are things that your mind's trained itself to understand and do. And so what you need to do is be aware of those. Once you're aware of that, you can recognize what implicit biases you have. And it could be anything. It could be age. It could be hair color. It could be weight. It could be, how they talk. There's a multitude of reasons that people have implicit biases, and how you wouldn't treat someone the same as you would if there was someone exactly like you, a mirror of you. And that's what you got to be careful.
And I think the important issue for us is that we are very fortunate that Brett will help us become more aware at our boot camp. And Cindy even raised with me, we were having just a conversation, and she's in a slightly different location. And she observed and found that the food was really different in that location as opposed to this location. And and you just sort of, no one says, "Gee, I can find this food or that food or whatever." You know what I mean? I mean, it's a silly topic in some senses, but
it's not. I'm missing Cuban food, Pat. It's important. I need my black beans and rice. I need a lot more garlic in my life.
You need to go to Costa Rica.
Well, we have someone who can make that happen.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
No, but it's I think it's that self-awareness is as Brett said, step one. And that's really hard. And no one is saying anyone is bad or illegal. We're just trying to make all of our customers feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we're in the southern part of the United States. We know that other parts of the United States might be different. There might be some biases there that I was telling the story to Cindy that when I was teaching in New Jersey, I told all the students to get in line and not be talking and no fooling around in the corridor. And no one moved. And I said, "Why aren't you moving?" And they said, "We don't know what the corridor is." And I said,
I figured that.
"Oh, okay." Okay. And that's when I was, way in the past, but we use words a little differently sometimes. And we've got to be open enough to say, "Oh, why aren't you moving?"
Yeah.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, okay. That's my fault. I've got to use a different word here. So I think it's really an important topic, especially in today's world with people who expect to be respected, and they should be respected as individuals.
A lot of what we'll talk about at the boot camp is going to be education and history, and it's how we got where we are. There are two great books out there. One is The Color of Law, and The Color of Law really puts it as people who don't experience this. I am the poster child for the white male that, this has nothing to do with, and everybody thinks that they're, innocent of all this. But when you start talking to and getting around people who have been involved with it, and you read a book like The Color of Law, it will go through all the disasters this country has done to harm people, and especially when it comes to housing. And that's what the book's geared for. The second book I always talk about is from Martin Luther King, and it's Where Do We Go From Here? And he pretty much had a plan, 1960s, had a plan of how we could avoid this. When Martin Luther King passed away, the government was so concerned with the riots and the things that went on that they passed the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act had been written 5 years before and could not get passed. But because of what was going on and the fear of what would happen if they didn't pass it, they passed it. But guess what? None of that was implemented. It's one thing to say there's a law, but it's another thing you have to enforce it. And even NAR, until the 1970s, had in our code of ethics that we could not show a person of a different race, paraphrasing a little, but of a different race, a neighborhood that was different from them. We had to put them in like kind. It was basically saying you had to redline. And that was in the 1970s after the Civil Rights Act. So it was, became, and there's documents all over the place. We were talking to the attorneys up in Tallahassee about associations that have in their deeds and documents that only this property can only be sold to a Caucasian person. Personally, if I lived in a neighborhood like that, I'd want it taken out of embarrassment. I don't want it there. And the Civil Rights Act actually said that's all mute from an attorney's standpoint. It doesn't matter. it doesn't exist, even though it's there.
But we have to accept the fact that we come from this culture that did produce these documents, and people were freed in the 19th century, and we're here talking about this today. So we still do need to pay attention to this. And I want to thank you for, we twisted Brett's arm and,
Anytime.
But he's the type of person who, if we get 5 people, gosh, you know what? That's good. That's great. In boot camp. And we thought we wanted to invite everyone. And Brett has some really exciting and interesting little exercises for you to do so that you can be helpful to isolate and articulate your own biases. So I want to thank you for being dedicated. This is really an important topic. I know it makes some people feel uncomfortable, but that's good.
That's how you grow.
That's how you grow.
That's the first thing we say in the class. And the class is actually a 5-hour class if you take the implicit bias course that NAR has. But that's the first thing that we throw out there is, listen, we want you to participate as much as you are willing to, but we don't want anybody feeling uncomfortable. And we know that there's some uncomfortable topics in that program.
So, and we're going to get Cindy. We're going to get Cindy on board too, because she's a Southwest Florida born young lady. So, we're gonna besides food, we're gonna take a look at. She misses the food that we but I think it's really important to participate in these kinds of things. Staying new and staying current is really the way. Those people who adapt to new and changes remain alive. The woolly mammoths disappeared. Not that we're woolly mammoths, but
close.
We're sometimes some of us can be close, I guess. But join us for that. And Brett, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Brett got back after visiting Tallahassee, and this was important, so important that he wanted to make sure that he got his view out here.
100%. All right. Thank you so much. We look forward to the next episode, and hopefully my cat will join us. And we'll see you at the boot camp on April 19th.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Ask Pat. You can learn more at Downing-Frye.com and make sure to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn.